Hey friends, welcome to part 1 on the tutorial of how to frame a stone. Create a framed pendant, something similar to this. We're going to be working with this copper plume agate. So we're going to set our stones, our main stones, in this part of the tutorial. First of all, let's get our tools ready. You will need a bench block or something to hammer on. A hammer, of course. Nylon pliers, tweezer nose pliers, and flush cutters. For this part of the tutorial, we're going to be working with 16 gauge square copper wire, dead soft, 18 gauge round copper, and 21 gauge round copper. So we're going to start out first with our 16 gauge. Now this is going to be the base of our frame, and we can use our nylon pliers to straighten it out more. Now when you're making your frame for your stone, first you need to, of course, pick your stone. We're working with this triangular shape, so we need to measure our wire after you figure out which way you want it to sit. Mine's going to sit this way. So to measure our wire, we want to have enough space to create our bail, which is going to be more than enough. So let's go up a little bit higher. So we've got plenty to create our bail, and then it's going to come down to the point. Now that's going to be half of our frame. We want to go a little bit wider than that because we don't want our frame to be completely touching our stone. So I'm going to scooch my fingers down a little bit. This could be our halfway point. Now all I'm going to do is eyeball this and double that length and snip. Not an exact science when it comes to creating framework, but it works for me every single time, and it makes it a little bit easier because you don't have to worry about measuring. If you need to measure, go for it. Okay, we'll find about our halfway point, and I'm just going to make a little bit of a bend since our stone has a point down at the bottom. Now this stone is not completely straight on either side, it is rounded. So I want to make sure that I round these sides to match the shape of my stone. Even though the frame is not going to be touching our stone, we still want it to kind of mimic the shape of our stone. So I'm just using my finger to put a bend in it. And even though this is 16 gauge, a little bit bigger, it is dead soft we're working with, so it's easy still to manipulate the wire. And then I could take my tweezer nose pliers, straighten parts out where I need it to straighten. The fun thing about a frame is you don't specifically have to make it match the shape of your stone. I can absolutely make this into a square frame. I can make it into a heart shape. I can make it into whatever, even a round shape. Whatever shape I'd like to, so that we can have a different shape on the frame than what our stone is. Now you want your framework to leave enough of a gap that you'll have plenty of space to be able to attach additional pieces to it later. So that's pretty good. We're pretty close to our stone, but we're not touching it, right? So now we need to bring it back in so that we can get these two pieces together and create our bail. So how I'm going to do that, I do want to mimic the shape of my stone. So I'm just going to hold it up. I'm going to go a little bit above my stone. And just bend it back in. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side now. Just like that. I'm gonna make this a little bit more narrow. Good, I'm pretty happy with that. So where these two crisscross now, I'm just gonna add a bend in it. And we're gonna bend a little bit below that crisscross because we're gonna actually add another piece of wire in there, so we can have 4 wires to do a bale weave. So once you create that little bend out, you're just gonna bring your wires straight back up. And we want them close but not touching. Now, the most important thing is to make sure your bale is above the point so that we're centered, which that looks pretty darn good. We may be off just a tad. But not too bad. There we go, that's better. Just centered it a little bit more. Okay, now we want this shape to stay as is. It's already square, so we're not trying to flatten our wire. We are trying to work harden it to get it to stay in the shape that we have it. So I'm gonna hold the bale wires exactly where they are now. We don't want that shape to move. And then we're gonna take our hammer and just gently tap all the way around. Good. Now, it could still be manipulated, but it's a lot harder to manipulate it at this point. Okay, so we need to add 2 more pieces of wire here to do a 4-wire bale weave. So to do that, we're gonna get 21 gauge copper wire. And you can absolutely use 18 gauge here if you would like to. I am choosing 21 gauge. And this is round, dead soft copper. I'm just straightening a little bit with my hands. And to measure the right amount that we need, I'm just gonna hold it next to one side of my bale wire. And then you can pull it down. Just like that. And then I cut a little bit above that bale wire just to give us a little bit of playroom. Now we're going to bend this wire in half. And I like to use my tweezer nose pliers to cinch it closed down at the bottom. Just like that. Now we're doing a 4-wire bale weave because I am going to add a gemstone in here and weave that gemstone in place. I do have a tutorial on this part, so I'm not going to show this part here. I have a 2-part tutorial on how to weave a gemstone into a bale, so make sure you check that part out. But I will be back as soon as the bale is finished. Welcome back. We have now created our bale. And we have set a hessonite garnet up in there, and it's all attached. So our next step is to get our main stone set down here in the bottom. So we need to attach wires so that this stone has a place to sit. Now we can either go horizontal with 2 pieces, or we can go diagonal with 2 pieces. I think with this shape, I want to do the diagonal on the corners. So to do that, I'm going to actually grab a couple pieces of scrap 18 gauge wire. If I have a couple long enough, let's find out. This is a great way to use up scrap wires. One of many great ways. So I'm just straightening out my scrap wire here. So there's one piece, we need to find one more. And here's a second piece. So I want to curve these a little bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and make that shape. Let's do them together so that they're the same. I want to make that shape first. Now this is 18 gauge round. If you have 18 gauge square on hand, you're more than welcome to use that as well. But because I don't have 18 gauge square, we're going to be hammering this one flat. Now the first time we hammered on the frame piece, we weren't trying to make it flat. We were just trying to work hard in it. This time we were trying to work hard in it as well as flatten it. So as we hammer, we're going to hold either end and hammer the curve first because we want that shape to stay. Just like that. Now we've got a flatter piece as opposed to the one that we haven't hammered yet. It's flatter, it's work hardened, it's going to hold its shape better. So let's do this side, hold it down. All right, so let's go ahead and get our first piece attached. So this is the front because our gemstone is there. We want to hold our back wires in the back of the frame and wrap around towards the front. So once I have it in the place I want it, which I do want it coming closer to the point down here, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it, holding it nice and tight here. Now because we just work hardened it, it is going to be a little bit stiffer to bend. Just be aware of that. You can use pliers to help you bend it if you need to. Now that's secure. Holding everything in place because it could still move and slide on you. I'm going to go ahead and bend this one around. I always like wrapping the ends of these around 2 to 3 times. Totally up to you, whatever you feel like is most secure for you. Okay, we're going to tighten this down here. And I'm going to snip this a little bit shorter. And then go ahead and secure that end. I want it to end on the inside of the pendant, not the outside and not the back or the top, so that whoever wears this piece is not going to be poked or scratched by it. There's one side. Now we just got to do the other side here. And just get it matching up as much as possible to the other side. Hold it nice and tight. Tad bit higher, so I'm going to scooch it down before I secure this top part. Nice and snug there, not going anywhere. Now, however you put your wires in the back where it's going to hold your main stone, the thing you want to make sure of is that when your stone is in place, it's not going to be able to slip out any of the sides where you left the gaps. So this stone can't fit through here, it can't fit through there, and it can't fit through here. Now, of course, it could still fit through this side, but once we have it secured down in place, it's not going to be able to tilt that way. So to secure these, we're going to follow that same shape from behind. And to do that, we're going to get a couple pieces of 21 gauge wire. You can also use scrap pieces for this. That's 18 gauge. And I don't think I have long enough scrap pieces of 21. So let's go ahead and clip a couple pieces. Now I'm just going across the stone and then giving myself plenty of extra to be able to wrap the 3 times around again. Now, these don't have to be perfectly the same size, it's not going to matter. Okay, so I want my wire that I'm going to use to go over the stone to be coming out towards the front. So I'm going to start with that larger piece out towards the front, give myself a little extra, and go ahead and wrap 3 times around that back piece of wire that we just attached. Now, again, same thing. We want to finish this wire off inside the pendant, so it's not going to be poking the person wearing it on the back. And we're just going to slide it on up higher and move it out of the way for just a minute because we're going to attach the other piece of wire on the other side. Before we ever get our stone in here, For me, this way is easier to get both of your securing wires in place first before trying to put your stone in place, because if you attach just one side of the wire, your stone is going to want to pop right out of the other side. But if you have both wires already in place, it makes it a lot smoother and easier for you to secure your stone. To go ahead and tighten that up and slide it on up out of the way. Okay, now we're going to hold our stone in place. Now I started from the outside of this back wire on the top. I'm going to go to the inside of the back wire on the bottom. Now this is the tricky part, is getting that first wire secured. So I'm going to flatten it down against the stone just by pressing on the wire. And then I'm going to hold that wire in place. Let's make sure our stone is centered here. You can also use painter's tape to hold your stone where you want it to be, and it won't leave a residue on your piece. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this wire around one time. And we're going to point it to the back so it's out of our way. So one full loop around just like that. You can see we can still adjust it and move it around. Our stone can still move, that's okay. All right, now we want to make sure our stone is nice and centered. We have that point facing down towards the bottom where we want it. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. Press that wire down to get it nice and flat on our stone. All right, now we're going to wiggle with this, wiggle the wires, adjust it just a little bit, play with it a little bit till you get it in the right spot where you want it to stay and be secured in place. Once you are happy with the position on it, we can go ahead and wrap our wire around 2 more times on each side. You can see the wire still moving just because I'm messing with it. That's okay. I'm going to show you how to tighten that up in the end here. Okay, we only need to go around 1 more time, so I'm going to go ahead and snip this shorter so it's easier. Alright, same thing. Let's snip it shorter. Get that a little bit shorter there. Alright, our stone's not really going much of it anywhere. Let's go ahead and create the shape that we want with our wire. I just kind of use my nail to push it in a little bit. Now to tighten these wires, grab your pliers and just give it a good twist in the same direction that it's already wrapping around your back wire, and it's going to tighten that wire on the top. So if your stone is still like wiggling around way too much, like that's already much tighter than what it was, then you can always spin these back wires that are holding it, and it's going to tighten those wires down for you. That stone's not going anywhere. So now we've created our frame, we've set our main stone, and we've set a gemstone in the bail. I'll see you guys in part 2 to start adding all of the embellishments and decorations. Heads up, the rest of this tutorial you're going to see 2 different stones with a slightly different shape of frame. The main stone is going to be a boulder opal, and up in the bail is going to be a chrome diopside piece. But I will see you guys in part 2.